What is going on, everybody? Off the Mic Sports Network here. Some off-season NFL talk. A big story on Sunday. Really a long-running saga this offseason is what in the heck is going on with the Cincinnati Bengals. So Trey Hendrickson, their star defensive end, one of the best defensive players in all of professional football. This guy, I think, if I'm not mistaken, led the NFL in sacks last year. This guy is a terror. This guy is a terror rushing the passer. And one of the big topics of discussion after, Joe Burrow's gotten his contract done, but obviously Jamar Chase and T. Higgins both re-signed with and got extensions with the Cincinnati Bengals this offseason, getting lucrative numbers going to their bank account. But now the question is, okay, Trey Hendrickson, who's really the only defensive piece for Cincinnati at all. They fired their defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. They bring in Al Golden from Notre Dame, who had already been there as a linebackers coach. So they're reshuffling the defense. But now the report is from multiple people saying that contract talks have stalled between Trey Hendrickson, who wants, he wants more money. Naturally, when you perform at the level that he does, you want more money. And, the contract talks have stalled. This has been going on the whole offseason, the whole summer, trying to figure out what's going on. They were nickeling and diming their first-round pick, Shamar Stewart. They finally got him in. This is the story of this organization. They stayed on Marvin Lewis for way too long as a head coach. They bring in Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor, I think, has lasted a year or two too long. Really, the Super Bowl year really clouded everybody. And they're blessed, in my opinion, to have such a sensational quarterback in Joe Burrow and a sensational wide receiver in Jamar Chase. And T. Higgins is pretty damn good too. That's really all they have. And you Bengal fans can snicker at me all you want. And you say, Mike, you're a Browns fan. Shut the fuck up. Guys, you are basically the Browns who got a chance to go to a couple Super Bowls. This is a poverty franchise because Mike Brown nickel and dimes everybody. And now, hey, great. You have Joe Burrow on your team. You got your star wide receivers on both ends. What the fuck else do you have? And now you're going to tell me that you don't want to pay one of the best defensive players in professional football, and Trey Hendrickson. You want to nickel and dime him, and now, hey, let's go out and shop him around. How's that going to work out for you? And you still have a head coach who, God bless him, may be a nice guy. He's done a lot of great things, off the coaching ranks, and he seems like a decent dude, Zach Taylor. But he's not a great head coach. The guy got them to a Super Bowl, and the Chiefs fumbled all over themselves in that AFC Championship game a couple of years ago, and it led to hey, Joe Burrow made an incredible comeback, and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and I think it was the last time we saw Tyreek Hill, or one of the last times we saw Tyreek Hill in a Chiefs jersey. But yeah, this organization, listen, in the grand scheme of things, they should be especially with the talent level that they've been able to get, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. You've got to be able to surround it with just more. And, Lou Anarumo had a great defensive run in that. I think it was the 21 or 20. I forgot which year it was. Had a great time, had a great year. I think that had to have been Joe Burrow's second year. But now you've basically, hey, here we are a few weeks before the season, and you're having contract issues with your best defensive player. How do you propose that you're going to go into the season when you had a historically bad defense last year? It's the reason why you guys didn't make the playoffs. That's the reason why Jamar Chase had a historically great season last year. T. Higgins was pretty damn good on the franchise tag. Joe Burrow is as good of a quarterback as you were going to find in the NFL. And yet this defense could not stop a nosebleed. So wouldn't that tell you that, hey, we've got to do everything we can to make sure that we have our best player who played pretty freaking, like I said, I think he led the NFL in sacks last year, Trey Hendrickson. And now you're going to just shop him around a few weeks before the season? What? This is a clown car. Everybody wants to focus on the Cowboys because of Jerry Jones and, all of the problematic things. And, that organization hasn't been to a conference championship game in God knows how long. I understand that the Bengals have had some recent success, but this franchise is much closer to the Browns than people realize. They just have had some really, great players. Boomer Esiason. I mean, Chris Collinsworth was a pretty good player before he turned into a commentator. Um, you know, like Carson Palmer was a great. They've had talented people in that building, but it's never led to an extended string of success. And this team didn't make the playoffs last year. And they could have had they not fumbled out of the gate and their defense hadn't have been so fucking awful. So I don't understand why this has to be so complicated, how you can't pay your top defensive player, but you can pay your three biggest offensive pieces. And I understand offense is what ultimately wins out in the NFL, but as they always say, defense wins championships. This is more of an offensive league, the NFL is, but defense wins you championships. Look what happened in the Super Bowl last year. Patrick Mahomes was running for his life against the Eagles. The Eagles dominated the Kansas City Chiefs. So if you're going to win a championship, and let's be real, I don't think the Bengals are winning a championship, and that's an insult to Joe Burrow, who, to me, I would love to have him on my team. And he has been given heaven and earth. But at the same time, it's not his fault that this organization cannot fundamentally field a good enough team and get a good head coach in that building. Because, like I said, Zach Taylor, as nice of a guy as he may be, to me, is not a good head coach. This organization is a fucking disaster. And they'll probably won't make the playoffs this year. If Trey Hendrickson's not there, man, I don't know who the hell is going to rush the passer. I don't know who the hell is going to play defense for this team. You could have the greatest quarterback of all time, and you could have two of the best receivers in the NFL and tell me that you're fine. But let's be real, you're not going to be fine. And that's why a lot of Bengals fans are panicking here. Because you have got to find a way to lock this guy up, get him in there, and build more of a roster around the three players that you have on the offensive side of the ball. And Chase Brown's a pretty good running back. But let's be real, he's been in the league for a cup of coffee. So I look at this situation, man, and we spent a lot of time talking about Micah Parsons and obviously the trade demand that he has, and that situation is still ongoing. But Trey Hendrickson, this has been going on since really the beginning of the offseason. This has been a topic of discussion for a while, that he wants more money. He wants a new contract. He wants to get things figured out. And yet here we are. This has been going on for multiple months. And here we are at the end, in the middle of August, and we're still having a conversation about this. And you want me to take this team seriously as a playoff contender? Listen, it's the rate. Let's be real. As a guy who roots for a team in the AFC North, listen, my Browns are going to be terrible this year. I have submitted to the fact there is no reason for optimism with this Cleveland Browns team this year. If Shedeur Sanders gets in there and he turns out to be something, fine. But I don't see this team going to the playoffs. I don't see them. The Steelers, I think, are more of a disaster than people want to admit. I think Aaron Rodgers is cooked. DK Metcalf has kind of been a diva throughout his career. You bring in Jalen Ramsey. They're bringing in all these high-priced people, and listen, I don't think it's going to net them anything. It might be Mike Tomlin's, worst season as a head coach. And then there's the Bengals, because let's be real, it is the Ravens and it's everybody else in this division. So if you want to tell me that either one, that the Bengals even are close to the Ravens, you're delusional. The first thing they got to do is get their defense figured out. Get Trey Hendrickson or trade him or figure it out. But the fact that it's gotten to this point a few weeks before the season and you didn't figure this out, how am I supposed to trust this organization and trust this team to potentially contend in the AFC this year? Because listen, even if you're contending in the AFC, there's still teams littered up and down that conference that can completely contend for a championship this year. The Chiefs, everybody's out on the Chiefs. We'll see what happens with the Broncos under Sean Payton after having a great year with Bo Nix. They get to the playoffs. The Bills are still there. And the Bills are going to be raring to go to potentially, finally get to win a conference championship and go to the Super Bowl. We haven't done that in God knows how long, in 30 plus years. So I just can't take this team seriously. And some people will snicker at me saying, Mike, you're a Browns fan. What right do you have to say that? It's guys, listen, I can say whatever the fuck I want. And looking at this, the Browns had a disaster, but they settled it with Myles Garrett. The fact that this is still going on and you're about to start another season when you have been known to have slow starts out of the gate and how you still got distractions. This is a clown car. This is a clown show in Cincinnati, and they got to figure it out. Otherwise, they're going to squander a generational type of quarterback and a generational type of wide receiver in Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. And T. Higgins is pretty damn good too. That's it. That's all this team has. That's really all this team has. So we'll see how everything goes. Anyway, thanks so much. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.